What the Actual Fork podcast is co-hosted by two intuitive eating registered dietitians, yours truly, Sammy Previtt, owner of Fine Food Freedom, and Jenna Warner, owner of Happy, Strong, Healthy. We can't stand diet culture bullshit and love keeping it real. Our mission is for all humans to believe that they are made for so much more than chasing a smaller body. We are also here to share with you that food can be fun and pleasurable again. Although we are medical professionals, we are human too. We are not afraid to share our deepest, darkest secrets and how years of our lives were taken by diet culture. We started this podcast so no human has to feel alone in their journey towards food freedom. So get comfy and join us for a casual convo where you can expect to laugh, cry, learn, and grow.
Hello, What the Actual Fork fam. It's me, Chelsea. I'm here again to intro a very fun, very important episode to me. This is our intern episode. So we have myself, Anna Crum, and Allison Mandel, all interns with the podcast and Fine Food Freedom, and we're here to share what it's like being a dietetic intern, knowing what we know about intuitive eating in, the nutrition space that at its core is very weight focused and weight centric. So just some short intros. I'm a current dietetic intern and the What the Actual Fork podcast manager. I graduated from college with a Bachelor of Science in Dietetics, Nutrition, Fitness, and Health, and a minor in Spanish. And I'm just a couple weeks away from finishing my dietetic internship, ready to take the exam. I have a background in sports nutrition, eating disorders, and intuitive eating. Anna Crum graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition and Dietetics and a minor in Digital Marketing. She completed her dietetic internship and has a background in sports nutrition, eating disorders, and intuitive eating. Anna has worked under Sammy since 2018. She transitioned from her role as an intern to virtual assistant / enrollment coach to now registered dietitian and director of social media marketing, and is on her way to work to become a certified intuitive eating counselor. Allison Mandel is a master's student and dietetic intern less than 2 months away from completing her internship. She currently works as a dietary aide at a residential eating disorder facility and hopes to work in the field of eating disorders and earn the CEDRD credential. She has been an intern with the pod since August after finding the pod 2 years ago, introducing her to intuitive eating and health at every size. I'm so excited to share this episode. Please follow us on What the Actual Fork Pod on Instagram and like, subscribe, rate, review, all the things on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What the Actual Fork Podcast. This is the one where the interns come back. We've got myself, my name is Chelsea Schaefer, Anna Crum, and Allison Mandel. We are the women behind the What the Actual Fork Podcast, and we're here to share kind of our personal experiences with being an intern in diet culture, in dietetics, and kind of what we experience, how we manage being rooted in intuitive eating and trying to navigate what is the dietetic internship. So yeah, that's why we're here. We got this, this episode was requested, so we're really excited to be sharing this with you guys.
Yeah, it's been Chelsea, like a year or so
I know.
since we recorded our last one.
Yes.
And in the meantime, we have gained Allison as well. So we added someone to the What the Actual Fork intern team, crew, and it's just so exciting. I know our previous intern episode was probably one of our most listened to, which is wild, and I think that just goes to show shout out to all you RD2Bs listening to the podcast and gaining all of this knowledge and trying to go against the grain of diet culture in your internship as a student, as a new dietitian, all of the things. So I'm super excited to be here. I know Chelsea and Allison, this was just something that was hey, let's do round 2. And can't say no to that. Chatting with you guys on the podcast, it's just super exciting. So we definitely wanted to go into what's the why behind this episode. And yes, it is to hold a conversation with interns behind What the Actual Fork, but it's also to answer some of your questions from RD2Bs that we get from some of our interns, like when I say our, I mean the Find Food Freedom team as well. I've had them submit some questions, and these are, I guess, just frequently asked questions that interns like want to know and that need to know, because navigating wanting to become an intuitive eating dietitian and going through internships that are very like weight focused and not rooted in intuitive eating is hard. It's really hard. And Chelsea, I definitely want you to share. We were chatting off air before we started, but you told me, you were like, and I couldn't really relate to what you said like last time we recorded.
Yeah, so when we recorded the first intern episode, Anna was talking about her experience. I was still an undergrad and I just applied to dietetic internships, but Anna was talking about her experience being a dietetic intern in a more weight-focused program. And fun fact, I'm in the same program she was in, so it's been a ride. It's been great, but a ride. So I just remember not really super relating to everything she was talking about, because I think in undergrad, you're just kind of like doing assignments, you just don't have the same responsibility, and you don't have preceptors who are watching you trying to like see how you're caring for patients and clients. So I just didn't really get it, but now I totally get it. And it's just so interesting to me. So if you are an undergrad right now and you're listening to this, like save it for when you're a dietetic intern, unless a Hayes intuitive eating internship program pops out of the ground before then. So
Yes. No, I was the first time I heard you say that, Chelsea, and I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I thought it was like super relatable, but we were both at different like parts in our journey to become a dietitian. Like Allison, I know you're an intern right now as well. I am a new RD, so I definitely have kind of a different perspective now, like being out of the internship. So yeah, I know we chatted about this earlier, and I would love for us to dive into this as like our first question of like, when did we like first learn about intuitive eating, and like why like was that like the starting point of like everything? Like what prompted that transition? And Allison, I would love for you to kick us off.
Okay, I love this question because it's very related to the pod. So I didn't really know what anti-diet, intuitive eating, health at every size was. It kind of stumbled upon it like accidentally during the pandemic. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, I started walking around my apartment complex because I was bored in my apartment, and I was just scrolling through Spotify, and I find Drunk Dietitians before the name change. And I started listening to it, and I was like, holy shit, like this is so relatable. Like I knew that there had to be a better way to live. Like I knew it. Like I was, I come from a background of having my own eating disorder, then going into bodybuilding, and then going into powerlifting. But I had restricted my intake for so long, not eating when I finished my macros, and it was ridiculous. And I knew that at some point, like it wasn't sustainable anymore. And then I find Drunk Dietitians, and I'm just like this is it. Like this is great. And so I started listening to all of the episodes. I found a couple of other podcasts that were anti-diet, intuitive eating, and it was just like that was it. Like there was no turning back for me from there, and it was amazing.
I love that. Freaking throwback to Drunk Dietitian. Shout out if you're listening to this and you're like, OMG, yes. And if you don't know like what that is, I invite you to like scroll back through like some of the podcast episodes, and like there was a name change. So definitely dive into that episode. I'm blanking on the name, but we can put it in the episode notes of describes their transition, and that's really how it kicked off. And I'm so glad that that's like how you found us, and now you're obviously a part of the team and doing the damn thing.
It's really cool. It's like a full circle thing for me. Like this is the reason why I completely changed my perspective on anything, everything actually. And it's kind of really cool to now be a part of the podcast that quite literally changed my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. That just like reminded me too, like you said, like intuitive eating, like it goes into every part of life, right? And this just happened this week. One of our interns over at Find Food Freedom, shout out to Stephanie, she made this handout this week because I was describing her this image, and I say this a lot to clients, of intuitive eating really is intuitive living. if you think of a can of worms, intuitive eating is like the lid of the can. You take off the can and then all of these worms start shooting out, and it's like life, relationships, work, exercise, body image, food, like all these different areas start pouring out, and it makes you more aware, more intuitive, and not only just with your relationship with food, but also your passions and things that you enjoy. And she just made that handout this week, and I'll have to send it to you guys, but it describes just that picture perfectly of like everything shooting out, and that's truly what intuitive eating is. So I'm just had to share that, and also give one of our interns, because this is an intern episode, a shout out, because interns save lives, and I've been an intern. I help precept interns, and it's a rough time, so we're here for it. Chelsea, would you like to share next?
Sure. So I learned about intuitive eating I found it on Instagram. I found Anti-Diet, and you know whose Instagram I found it on? Sammy's. So it's kind of crazy. It is kind of crazy that I'm like managing her podcast now, her and Jenna's podcast. So yeah, I just saw an Instagram post. I was like, wow, this sounds like kind of too good to be true. And I looked into it and I was like, wow, it's not too good to be true. This is evidence-based. Like, there's science to support this. It's not just someone like saying something fun and beautiful. So then I was going to Jacksonville for the summer, and I know you're gonna laugh when I say this. So I was going to Jacksonville, Florida for the summer. So I did a quick Google search for, dietitians in the area who I wanted to intern with. I think it was Dietitians Upon Valley then. I can't remember. That was a while ago. So I think it was Dietitians Upon Valley, found contact info, emailed Miss Anna Crum in a totally professional manner, because I thought, whoever this practice manager was probably some like successful 30-year-old, like taking on life. And, it is a successful woman, and it's Anna Crum, but she was like 21. I don't know. So I would call her, I wouldn't say like, hi, Anna. I would be like, hello, Mrs. Crum. In our email correspondence. It was so funny. But anyway, so that's how I found intuitive eating. And then I I started interning with Fine Food Freedom or Dietitians Upon Valley. And then my first project was the podcast. So I started not managing. I was the first intern for the podcast back in 2020, and I'm still here and learning, loving every minute of it. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
I freaking love that. I will never forget, like, that was like me and Chelsea like met like via email, and then later on like met in person, but like it just still to this day like makes me laugh, because like, and I loved it because it was like super professional, and like obviously Chelsea was like super passionate, like wanted to learn more, like everything was great, but it really just got me, like Miss Anna Crum. It really got me.
And nothing if not professional.
Were you shocked? Were you shocked when you met Anna in real life and you realized that she wasn't some middle-aged woman?
No, at that point we had like followed each other on Instagram, and then I, was a little bit more casual from that point on. So no, I didn't. I had seen her, and we had been on like video calls and things like that. So
I think you told me too, like literally like one of the first or second times you're like, I just have to say, like, I thought you were like 30. And I remember just like also dying laughing because it was just like super funny. But I think that also just goes to show like you can be any age and doing any job and be kicking ass at it. So
I love
whether you're
I think the dietetics
30,
profession is I think the dietetics profession is like really good at kind of breaking down barriers. I think there's so many ways to just like make your own path, and I love that.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
for sure. And I think too, like I have a very similar story to all of you guys of like how I found like intuitive eating, like health at every size, like anti-diet, and like what really prompted that transition obviously was like my personal struggles with food. And through Sammy, like I started working with Sammy. I've been working with Sammy at Fine Food Freedom since like 2018, and that's like a very long time ago now, it seems like. And was with her through the transition, and we did break this down over like on the Fine Food Freedom podcast, like part of my story, so I won't get into that but too in depth. But really, like once I learned about it, like you can't unhear it. And then it just like changes your whole perspective about nutrition. And it was hard because, and I know Sammy says this to me, and she has said this probably to you guys too, but in like laughs, it's like a loving laugh, but it's almost harder nowadays, like to be a student, to be a nutrition and dietetic student in undergrad at whatever university you're at in your master's, and learn about intuitive eating, because you start challenging basically everything that you're being taught. And somehow you want to incorporate intuitive eating into that. And you can. That's my number one piece of advice that I have given to some of our interns is like, if they make you do a handout on X, Y, and Z, I challenge you to put a paragraph, a page, whatever you can squeeze in, put intuitive eating in there somewhere, like put a little blurb, something like that was my biggest piece of advice. Because you can do that. You can like squeeze it in there somewhere. If you're making a handout, making a presentation, like it's 100% doable and possible, but it's hard because we're learning in class and sitting in classes, and all we really want to be learning about is how to help our clients more through intuitive eating. And I know Chelsea and Allison, you guys have both had struggles with that. I know I was the one in class that sat in the back and didn't say anything and just worked on my laptop and like didn't want to challenge what was being said, but it was hard. And I know you guys relate to that too.
When one of my preceptors is talking to me sometimes and he brings up like weight and how I'll be talking about a patient and they'll be like, well, and he'll ask, well, what was their weight? I will just like blankly stare at him. So that's been my approach personally. And then if I have to like make handouts, I'll just conveniently leave out anything about weight. And it's gone pretty well. I have found that you can totally successfully help people with their health without talking about weight at all. So that's been a joy to see, truthfully, like in practice, because obviously we hear about it, but actually doing it is just reinforcing why I love intuitive eating and Haze so much.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know that it was really hard for me to start going to grad school and have professors and preceptors that were so weight focused. And I started speaking up about it and I started challenging them. And I remember a couple of projects that I had to do. I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm not doing what you want me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I started making presentations about like health at every size and intuitive eating. And then towards the end of my semester, they stopped questioning me. So that was a pretty big win for me, because some of these professors, like, they have pretty strong opinions, especially like where I go. And this just happened yesterday. Actually, there was a patient at the hospital that I'm interning at, and she unfortunately lost both of her legs because of, it was multifactorial, but it definitely had a lot to do with her diabetes. And my preceptor says to me, like, why do you think she did it? Like, why do you think this happened? And I started explaining like all of these factors that probably ended up contributing to her having to get her legs amputated. And she goes, well, what was her weight? And I was like, you know what? Like, her being in a larger body had absolutely nothing to do with her losing her legs. And he stared at me and I was like, yep, I said it. And that was it. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, I know that I have the forcefulness and the assertiveness and the confidence to be able to say stuff like that. And I know that I'm fortunate, because some people don't know if they should say something like that. But I can't just sit back and watch this garbage happen. And sorry, now I'm talking a lot, but this reminds me of like during the summer when I had another class and this instructor was talking about bariatric surgery. And towards the end of the semester, she assigned me a case study to do, and it was this teenage girl. Keep in mind, this is make-believe, this is not real. But it was this teenage girl who wanted to get bariatric surgery. And I said to my instructor, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't even pretend to do something like this. And she ended up giving me another case study to do. But like, I couldn't even like pretend. Like, I couldn't do it. So
I think something that's been, first of all, it's amazing that you can like say that to your preceptor, because I think for me, it would have to be an ongoing, like a really intense ongoing issue for me to want to say something. That's just me personally. Maybe I need to journal about that. But that's amazing, Allison.
I think there's so many, like, for, like, it's different for all of us, right? Like, my way of responding to maybe something that a teacher preceptor says that I don't agree with, my initial response would just be like, okay, like, I'm not engaging, because like I didn't have the mental bandwidth to even like have that conversation when I was still struggling with my relationship with food. So for me, like, it wasn't best to like engage in conversation. It was just to reflect on it on my own, and then maybe rant about it to one of my other friends that like would understand me. But for you, Allison, it's being able to speak up. And then Chelsea, like, I know for you, like you said, it would have to be like on a more regular occurrence. And I think it's different for everybody of like what you're comfortable with. And that was one of the main questions that we got was to challenge or not to challenge your preceptor or professor. And that's a really like heavy, big question, because we're talking about people that are like basically an authority like over you. Like, they call the shots, like if you pass or fail this class. And I think there's a way that we can challenge like what we're being taught while also being respectful at the same time. And Allison, I know you were like, I feel like I'm talking a lot, and you were sharing, so never feel like you're talking too much. But it's always important to remember that like it's okay to be angry. Like, diet culture is rooted literally everywhere, and we have to go through that angry phase to be able to get to that phase of like helping other people. And I think it was Sammy that said this, but like, if we're just angry every time we hear something like that is rooted in diet culture, like, isn't that letting like diet culture win? Like, we can't like stay rooted in that and like stay like obsessing about it almost of like, oh, like I can't believe they said that. But it's okay to like go through that phase. So if you're an RD2B listening to this right now and you're angry at that one professor, preceptor, like, I'm sure we're all thinking of their name right now, but just hold space for that. And like, really, that's what this episode is about, is creating those conversations and holding space for like just struggles as an intern and things that just aren't really talked about. And we wanted to hold space for that conversation. It is hard, like, as an intern, like sometimes like having that internal battle in your head of like, do I speak up or do I not speak up? Like, and I feel like the only person that can answer that question is you. Like, you have to go through kind of those questions of like, am I in the right mental space to speak up right now? Am I super angry and maybe is this going to like blow up? Like, taking an inventory with yourself, I think, before speaking up can be huge. And I know, Allison, you kind of had that moment of just like, I know Chelsea, you said you stared at a preceptor. And Allison, you
really
just
did
kind of
not
like,
know what to say. I was like, is that really the problem? Like, first of all, no, but also, why does that matter? Like, what are you talking about? I think it's just general confusion.
Yeah. And Allison, you had that like initial response of like snapping back. And like, again, it's different for everybody. Which is completely fine too. Like, and really only you can answer that. And it has to, and there's a way that you can do it respectfully too as well.
I should have prefaced that with saying that I've been at this internship, this rotation specifically, for 3 weeks. So the aggravation has been building up a little bit. Like, this is not the first comment that he's made about people who are in larger bodies, but it was the first time that he kind of said it to me about a patient that I was taking care of. So like, the aggravation was there. So like, I had it in my head already, but I like actually spoke up because it was just ridiculous. Like, this is the same hospital that has doctors who don't think people in larger bodies can be malnourished. Like, it's ridiculous. The diet culture, ignorance, all that garbage that is in the medical field now is just stupid and terrible. Like, the way that they treat people who are smaller is so drastically different than the people who they treat who aren't. And it's stupid. Like, it should be consistent. And unfortunately, we know that it's not. And I feel like if I can try to make some small difference in the way that this dietitian thinks, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, but I know that Sammy and Jenna have both said, like, at least you planted a seed. Like, if it grows, if it doesn't, he at least knows my feelings about it.
100%.
Going off of like, going off of like diet culture in hospitals, when I got hired at the hospital I'm at now, the RD that was already there was introducing me to people, and the doctor said to one of the things, like it's a super small hospital, so there's only a few doctors. And the first thing this guy said to me was, "I hope you're here to cure the obesity epidemic in this county." And I'm like, nope, I'm not. But I can definitely help with improving health.
Mm-hmm.
I was just absolutely shocked. I was like, okay, first day, doing great already.
Yeah.
You were like, I'm here to genuinely improve their health because
Yeah.
weight is not a behavior, and I'm actually here to like help somebody and not just like slap a prescription of weight loss on them. That is
and while you're at it, BMI isn't an accurate indicator of health. So
Yup. It's all of those things too. Chelsea, I'm gonna bring this up because I will never forget the day that you texted me this. I forget exactly what your text said, but it said something along the lines of like, okay, so I think I get it now. Like, you're like, something about like feeling, it was like, I just like don't know if I can do this. Like, did you have this similar feeling in your internship of just like not feeling like you wanted to be in the field of dietetics anymore? So I don't know if you remember exactly what that text said, go ahead, but I will never.
I don't remember what it said, but I remember that moment. And I remember the moment since then where I've just thought, I don't think I can fucking do this. I don't think I can be a dietitian. I don't think I can handle living in this world, like where this is my profession. And these are the people these are the other professionals I'm dealing with. Truthfully. I think during my internship, I've had a lot of things come up personally with food. And I feel like I've been dealing with my relationship with food for a long ass time now. And like, I'm tired personally, but I remember that moment. It was a class day for my internship. And I remember specifically, it was the one about pregnancy and like fetal nutrition. And it was talking about calorie requirements and needs for pregnant women, and how like if you're in a smaller body, this is your calorie need. If you're in a larger body, this is your calorie need. And I'm just thinking, this is so fucked up. Like, what if prescribing someone in a larger body a lower calorie need like totally messed up their nutrition because of the weight bias in nutrition science? And that was the moment that I texted you. I was like, absolutely not. I can't do this bullshit anymore. Like, I quit. This is not good for my mental health. Like, I'm picking something else. And I think since then, it's just been a roller coaster of, I think I've almost landed solidly on wanting to be a dietitian again. But listen, it's been a ride. Because I think there are just some times where I feel like it's so hopeless, and there's just so much to correct and so much to fight. And it really, I mean, after that statement from the academy came out, or not statement, but their proposal, it just goes back to like this. I mean, it's so deeply rooted in diet culture and weight stigma, and how the fuck do we turn it around? And I think I was just having a moment of not knowing what the heck I was going to do, because I was going to leave the profession.
And we have those days, right? I know I had those days. And Chelsea, I think my response to you from that text, I was like, yes. I think my first response was just yes. Because I was like, yes. I was like, again, you said we were in the same internship program. I was a year before you, but like there were definitely better days, but definitely some really shitty days, because you have some of those days where you just feel like you're putting your head through a wall, listening to presentations that you just feel like don't align with you, or doing assignments also that you hate doing. And that's part of your internship, right? Is figuring out things that like you like and that you don't like. And I think one of the things I told you is like, yes, it sucks. I've also thought about like not pursuing this field. I know Sammy has shared her story too of like, if it wasn't for intuitive eating, like she would have just like quit entirely. But Sammy didn't learn about intuitive eating, and Jenna, when they were like a student, like I feel like now like a lot of people and like dietetic students, like their first introduction to like nutrition and dietetics is intuitive eating on social media. That's been like a huge thing. Like we have a couple interns right now at Find Food Freedom that are like, your account is the reason why I changed my major. to nutrition and dietetics. And the coursework is everything that we've talked about thus far. So it's hard. It's going against the grain of that. But I think the one thing I did share with you, Chelsea, or what I would go back and say is like, we're the future of the field, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's gonna have to be new people on the board of the academy, like new people in positions that are in a position like to make change, and we're the future of that. So that's like definitely big picture thinking, but that's always what I have to remind myself of, like you might think that's a lot of years away. Like, if you think about it, I started working with Sammy as an intern like 5 years ago, and like now I've blinked and we're here and we're making the second intern podcast episode. But like, don't ever think it's not possible. Like, I think like we've had like very huge strides in the field of like advocating for all bodies, like all medical diseases, like people of all different shapes, sizes, and color, which is, we should have fair, unbiased healthcare everywhere. But unfortunately, that is not the case. But there have been huge strides made, and I feel like I have seen it too. I don't know if you guys can, hopefully you can echo that, and people listening to this can say yes, but we have a long way to go. So it's a lot.
It is, definitely. It's hard. And I think that's part of the reason why we wanted to make this episode, right? We want to just let RDs to be, and even just nutrition students who are maybe thinking about becoming a dietitian or not, that these feelings, like, they're valid. Like, you're not alone, especially if you know about intuitive eating and anti-diet and health at every size and all of that stuff. And you're sitting in a weight management class because that's what your school provides for you. And you know that you want to do better, but you can't, or, you know, these are the classes that you need to take. Just know that, you know, there's another side. You know, just because you learn about this stuff in school doesn't mean it's how you have to practice, right? You're going to be a dietitian eventually, and you could practice however you want to practice. So I think that's a great thing to keep in mind also. I know that that's definitely what helps me a lot going through this, knowing that I'll be a dietitian and I can do what I want and not cause harm.
Anna did tell me that. And it's something I had told myself. And for some reason in that moment, it didn't really provide me any solace. But I think it's because I was in the very beginning of my internship. Now that I'm like a few weeks away from being done, I'm starting to feel that clarity. But then I was like, yeah, but it's way too far away for that. Like, I'm unwell.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely felt like that too. So you're not alone. Like, it hasn't been completely perfect for me. I've definitely had a bunch of what the actual fuck moments. And I feel like that certainly deserves that, not for fuck. Like, I've definitely had a bunch of those going through my time here. But I just have to keep reminding myself that, you know, I had to unlearn a lot of stuff to be able to get to where I am. So I know that, you know, eventually I will become the dietitian that I really want to be.
Thank you for telling me that.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. And Chelsea, I would love for you specifically to answer this question, because I did kind of out you with your text message, but I think it would be awesome if we could all just share, like, if there's one thing that we wish we would have known, like, at the beginning of our dietetic internship, kind of as we like wrap up this episode, like, what is like your biggest piece of advice, whether to yourself or to somebody that like hasn't started their internship but is about to?
One thing I wish I would have known is, this isn't super helpful, I don't think, but what it really would have felt like. And I think I guess one thing I wish I would have known / done is just making more space to feel this way, like making more space for myself to feel so conflicted about this. Because I was going into the internship like absolutely jazzed, so excited, like ready to get this shit done and experience everything. And I think I didn't expect to feel so helpless and so lost in dietetics and the internship and everything. So I wish I would have made a little bit more space for me to feel these like imperfect feelings.
That is helpful, I think.
That is helpful, definitely.
What about you, Allison?
Let's see.
I mean, I think for me, like, Chelsea, that I'm going to echo everything that you just said, because you didn't think it would be helpful, but it was actually very helpful, because that sparked really what I would say is And I did this at the beginning of my internship. I kept a journal, but it was more like a work journal / like everything journal. And I'm actually staring at it right now. It's right there behind my laptop. But I kept this journal to like, of course, have notes for my internship, but also as like an outlet. And I think one, if that's a big tip for any of you, if you're not journalers, then scream in your car. I don't know, find another outlet to get whatever's going on in your head, like the thoughts, like out onto paper. Because a lot of times you need to be able to kind of process the thoughts to be able to go on with your day and give yourself permission to feel all of the emotions, like especially even like as an intern, because you are kind of playing both roles, right? I know I'm a very new RD taking on clients, but in your internship, you're kind of having that fine line, right? Of like, you're an intern, you're being overseen by like a preceptor, but you're also kind of playing the role of dietitian, right? So it's almost like that imposter syndrome, right? Like that feeling like inadequate, but also like trying to perform at like max capacity. So I'm echoing everything you just said, Chelsea. Give yourself permission to feel, find an outlet to be able to get whatever thoughts are coming up out onto paper, and just so you can try and move forward with your day. And give yourself permission to also like take a break, like put the laptop away, like take a walk, take a break. Like that's needed in your internship too.
It definitely is. I think for me, I wish that I knew I feel like I knew how difficult it was going to be to go into an internship while also knowing everything that I do now. But I think if I was going to give any advice, it's everything that you guys said, and allow yourself to feel this. Like, you can get angry and you can get upset, and you need to feel those feelings. If you don't, it's going to bubble up and it might end up being an argument with a preceptor or an instructor. But I've called the dietitian that I work with. I've called her countless times in tears, like so upset about either a day that I had or a class that I had or just anything like that. So just really being able to allow yourself to feel how you're feeling, because it's, it's valid. You're allowed to feel like that, and trying not to like push it down and ignore it, because eventually, and it will come out. So you might as well, be proactive about it and not reactive.
I think other advice would be text your friends. Like I texted Anna, find support. We do have a Facebook group as well for dietetic students, dietetic interns, to seek support from people who are having a hard time in undergrad. I mean, that's what it was made for, just to find like-minded people who are going through the same things as you, and so you're not alone.
I love that. And as we're kind of wrapping up, also, if you're ever in need of a preceptor, Find Food Freedom loves taking on interns. So if you want to just kind of learn more about intuitive eating and like nutrition, communications, marketing, social media, all the things, we're always looking for more interns. But until next time, guys, I think we can do round 3. Sound good to you?
Let's do it when Chelsea and I are both RDs.
I love that to discuss.
That would be the one with the dietitians.
Oh, I love it.
Same time next year. See you there.
Add it to my calendar.
See that.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of What the Actual Fork Pod. We know there are a lot of pods out there, and we are so grateful that you are here listening with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, like, share with all your friends and faves, and follow along with us on social at What the Actual Fork Pod. We promise to continue to bring you the hottest topics, greatest guests, and the most fun you can possibly have while fighting diet culture bullshit. We love you, we appreciate you, and we will see you next week for a lot more fun.